off and running.
It's good. It's just cold.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I hear you. I do not like the cold at all. At all.
We had snow yesterday and we never get snow.
Wow, remind me, Allison, where you are. I'm so sorry.
Well, I work in Monticello, but I live in El Dorado, so very south.
Oh, wow. Yeah. When I was driving into Little Rock yesterday, there were tiny, tiny little flecks of, I don't know if it was snow or sleet or whatever, some sort of frozen precipitation. And I thought to myself, oh, Lord, I better turn the car around and go get some bread and milk. Because, if there's any even prediction that there might be something, the shelves get wiped out. So, anyway. Have you guys seen that video? I'm not sure if I saw it on Facebook or where. It's a news reporter that's in Arkansas. She's in Arkansas when she records this, and it's a parody of how we all react when there's even a threat of snow. Um, and I mean, she's Gary, you're chuckling. Have you seen it? It's yeah. She's going, oh my goodness. She's outside and she's panning her camera, and there's nothing. I mean, nothing. She's like, look at the snow. It's coming down. Lock your children in the house. It's hysterical. It's hysterical. I'll have to try to find that and send you the link so you can have a chuckle on your Tuesday. So
That's good. As a principal, staff would come in if there's one snowflake that came down. You count the seconds till a staff member came in and said, "Are we closing?"
yeah. Yeah. Working in higher ed was the same way. Students would be calling and going, "Is the university closed? Am I going to have class tonight?" Yeah. So, I guess that's what it's like when you live in the South, and it's novel to have snow. So, all right. Well, we can get started, and we had planned to have Jan Cook with us today to talk about finance. And she and I have been planning this for several weeks. We talked about it a month or so ago to get her scheduled. And last week we had meetings scheduled a couple of days, and she sent me an email and said, oh my gosh, I'm out sick. I'll be back tomorrow. And then she wasn't back the next day. And I said, okay, well, we'll just do it on Monday and we'll get our slides together and stuff. She emailed me yesterday and said, I fell yesterday and broke a rib. So all that to say, we'll have a short meeting today. And I hope that's okay with everyone, that I not cancel meetings when something like this happens. What I heard from you guys on the survey was that you definitely want to meet monthly and see each other and be able to have conversations, ask questions, connect, whatever. So if that's changed, let me know. Send me an email or let me know on the chat here. Like I said, I just didn't want to cancel so I can see faces and you guys can see each other as well. So I've got a slide deck. If I can share my screen the right way, let's see how this works. All right, are you seeing that? Hey, keep here. I'm sure some of the rest of you are nodding as well. I can only see a few of you. So oh, okay, yeah, that's good. Let's go here. So what we're going to talk about today, just a couple of things, staff updates, follow up from some of the questions we had in December, and then as we did last month, updates from the field, because honestly, that was my favorite part of the meeting. And I hope you guys found value in it as well, to share some of your successes and things that are happening. So I'm not sure how many of you know these things, because I know one or two people here, and then the grapevine gets going. Jennifer Boyette, who has been my program advisor, has moved over to business and marketing as a program advisor for them. And that's where her heart is. She was a business teacher and really had hoped to get back over there. So I'm very excited for her. I'm thrilled for the division that we're able to keep her, because she's stellar. She's wonderful. So of course that means I'm by myself. She's still helping with the with AceBook approvals. That's been her primary work with me is with AceBook. So she'll continue to help with that until I get someone in that position. So that should get posted soon. If you know anyone in the Central Arkansas area or that wants to move to Central Arkansas and would be good in that position, please send me their info or send them to me or whatever. I really want someone there that's going to stick around and stay with accountability. So that's our first update. I'm sure a lot of you know about Chris leaving. Chris Backus was our program coordinator in agriculture, and he's accepted a position with the state fair. And I can't remember, he's the director of, and it's not the whole state fair, but it's the ag piece. I know that's not very definitive. I asked Gordon Eichelberger, who is now serving as the interim program coordinator, for what his title was this morning, but he's in a different meeting. So it's a big loss for us to lose Chris, because he had been with DCTE, I want to say 13 years, if that sounds right to folks. So we're missing him. But as I said, Gordon Eichelberger, who's been with us as well for a while, is that interim program coordinator. That position, I'm not sure if it's posted and closed, because we've got, a couple of positions open. So, and then business and marketing, Kim Bayless, who had been with us for quite a while, left and is beginning her retirement, and she's getting married. So she's decided to just take all kinds of challenges and different stressors on in her life. And again, she's been around for a while. So, so we're all kind of putting our heads together and trying to, we tried to get as much knowledge from them before they left and moving forward. So Chris Davis, he's been with DCTE just over a year, has been appointed as the interim program coordinator there. And they have, like I said, they hired Jennifer, so they got a coordinator and an advisor, and a second program advisor will be hired pretty soon. And then we have follow-up from the December meeting. You guys we had a couple of things that we said, okay, we're working on those. And I just wanted to let you know where we are with that. The first one was training on the interpretation of the 2019 consortium report on performance measures for concentrators. Say that twice fast, not even 3 times, just twice. So that's something that I've been asked to create, and I am working on it. I'm sorry that's not done. It's one of those to do things that keeps getting trumped by other stuff. So, and I may reach out to a couple of you and ask if there are specific pieces of that you're interested in highlighting, or specific training. So is there anything you guys can think on off the top of your heads right now? What's important in that for you?
One thing I was wondering about in the reporting, when we report completers and, well, now there'll be completers and concentrators, is that going to change to where we do both? We'll have like 2 separate reports?
So, as we talked about, and I'm trying to remember which, so they would be 2 separate reports. Yes, concentrators and completers are different, although some of your completers are concentrators, right? Most of them should be, but not all concentrators would be completers. Always have to stop and think about those 2 terms. So yeah, they will be two reports. And yeah, that data should be coming from us, from OIE in Fayetteville. And then, as we discussed, I think the previous meeting or via email, that placement no longer has to be a dirty word. So the placement information, we'll be able to get most of that through DIS, Information Services, and then move forward with that. So does that help, Ronnie K?
Yes, ma'am. And then we don't turn in the placement form yet. I remember that from the last meeting.
Yes.
Right. We're going to hold off on that. Okay.
Right. And most of that, most of the information on those the placement will be coming from us back out to you after Information Services has done that collaboration with Workforce Services, where we should be getting some job placement information, all those kinds of things. So we're hoping that the majority of the placement information is going to come back to you, and that you'll only have a very small number that we'll need you to kind of track down. So fingers crossed that works out as we're hoping, because that would make all our lives much easier, I think, in that term.
Thank you for doing that. We really do appreciate it.
Well, that I wish I could take credit, but that was absolutely in the works. Dr. Kramer's gets the praise for that, and the collaboration between all the different areas. It's really phenomenal.
When can we expect that report, ma'am?
Initially, we were told that the graduation information would get to DIS mid-January. So I am thinking it's mid-January already, isn't it? I'm thinking probably mid-February, but I will ask again about that timeline and update you guys via email.
I just want to make sure that I completely understand everything you just said, Lydia. I'm sorry. So we're not going to do our placement reports typically that we do in February until we get the data that you already have. And you're hoping to have that by mid-February. And then once we receive that, we can just fill in the blanks.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that's
I
absolutely
just wanted
right.
to just
I
make
know
sure.
it's been a
Thank
moving
you.
target, and with me trying to figure stuff out and even understand what are we talking about when we say placement, I know it's been really difficult to kind of keep track of that. So you're right. All of that information should be coming to us from the Office of Innovation for Education in Fayetteville and the Division of Information Services. They are working, DIS is working with Workforce Services, and there's another agency that's slipping my mind, but to get the job placement information, hopefully military service, I guess higher ed's probably higher ed's engaged in that in terms of moving on to post-secondary. So DIS is working with all of those data elements to try to pull them together, fill in the blanks for us, and then once we have that, we will send it out to each of you with we'll send everything to you, obviously, but then any blanks that are out there will be, highlighted, hey, we need this information. So does that make sense? Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks.
Okay.
Yes.
This is Sheena. So I'm going to really kind of just disclose myself here, because this is the first time I'm in this position. So I have no idea what type of report you're talking about, but I'm assuming there's something coming up. So where might I go to look to see so that I can anticipate what I will need to do?
Okay, good question. It's the first time I've been in this role too. So we're gonna, as we've talked before, Sheena, we're gonna get through this. So the first bullet on this slide talks about this consortium report on performance measures for concentrators, which I was scratching my head for several weeks going, what is this? Where is this? I finally found them, duh. It's what I think Denise Arola talked with us about, either my first or second meeting with you guys. And it reviews all of the performance measures by consortium. Yep. So Sheena, don't worry about that right now, because those were were put out in the fall, excuse me, in the fall. And so what I'm working on is to do training to kind of walk you through that, which I'll have to train myself on walking through that. But when we're talking about the placement information, which is what Starlinda was just asking about, and Ronnie K was talking about, if you'll remember a meeting or two ago, we talked about all the information that we have to submit for the car report, which I've been saying is not what I get from the Honda dealership when I leave the service department. The car report is the consolidated annual report that the state submits to Octave to kind of talk about, okay, here's what we said we were going to do. Here's how we're implementing that. It's a progress report, basically. And there's several data pieces that are part of that. And in terms of how many participants do we have, how many concentrators do we have, it's broken down by gender, ethnicity, occupational area, all the different things. So people can compare and look at our data. So another piece that we get, and it's lagged data is what they call it. So we're reporting a year after the fact, if you will, is what's called placement data. And placement is where do our Perkins concentrators, I'm going to mess this up because I don't have it right in front of my face. Where do they end up 2 semesters after graduation? I think that's right. Somebody jump in. Thank you, Jennifer. I see a nodding head, and I know that means I'm on the right track. And so what we look for is, are they engaged in post-secondary education? Are they working? Are they in the military? Are they doing volunteer service? You know, it's placement. Where have they placed themselves after completing our programs? Does that make sense, Sheena? Okay, good. And then, like I said, now it used to be, my understanding is DCTE would send you guys out, hey, here's this ginormous spreadsheet of all your students that you need to follow up on. We need to know where they are. And that took, I can't even imagine how much work that took on your part. So this year, Dr. Kramers has worked, as I said, diligently to get some of this collaboration going with other state players to help fill in the majority of that information. So what you're going to get from us, Sheena, is a much smaller group of students that you'll need to follow up on. You'll still see all of your students, but hopefully you'll only have to corral a handful of them.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. Thanks for asking. And Jennifer, I appreciate the head nod that I was on the right track. Other questions about that piece? Okay, state startup programs. And I've gotten a couple of questions about the unfunded program list. And I do not have that yet. I'm not sure where that lives right now. So I am following up with Sonia and Dr. Kramers to see when we can have that list. The funded list was posted. I sent the link out to you guys. We had our quick pre-release update with you guys. And thanks. We got a few emails and comments that you appreciated having that meeting. And it was fun for us. And I'm glad that was well received. We do expect to continue that in the coming years because it's fun to celebrate and say, look at all these programs that are being funded across the state. So do you have other questions about that process, the state startup information that's out there?
So I did have one question, Lydia, because I know that I don't know if all of the grants were funded. I was having technology issues and couldn't do the 30-minute meeting the other day, but I know that not all of the grants were funded, and maybe not any of them at 100, well, at 85%. Let me say it like that. 85% of the cost to start. So does the school assume all of that additional responsibility? Or I've had at least one program coordinator tell me that they thought that we could use Perkins funding for that since the minimum equipment was not funded. Can you speak to that real quick? And I apologize, you may have said that in the meeting.
And I am going to do some digging on that so I don't give you misinformation.
Lydia,
Yes.
if I may, Rhonda, if I may, Perkins can't be used because Perkins can't be used for anything on the equipment list. And the
Right.
school is responsible for the 15%, but most of the time they get everything they need with the amount for the grant.
So I that's correct. And I could not agree more than I agree. But in my conversations with different people at DCTE, my understanding was because some of those grants were not being funded at the 85% level, that we would look at perhaps modifying some of those minimum equipment lists so that unfunded items could be purchased with Perkins funds then.
Sterlinda, I'll need to talk with you probably after the meeting and get some more details. So we can.
Sure, you want to just stay on for a little bit when we're finished?
Sure, that's great. Yeah, that'll be great. Just because
Awesome.
I need
Thank
to know
you.
what program areas we're looking at and those kinds of things. And I mean, I think from my recollection of being in the meetings where the decisions were made on funding, I think there were only a couple of programs that were not funded at 100%, and that was because they did already have some of the equipment. They didn't need full funding. That's my recollection. And I think the ones I'm remembering were ag programs, but I did have to step out of that meeting for about an hour or so. So anyway,
Sure.
yeah.
I'll be happy to stay on when we're finished and we can visit.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks. Other startup questions that I can't answer, and Rhonda will jump in and save me.
Lydia, one of the things that I would like would be access to the rubrics where they were graded, because I had one school that's applied for the same program 2 years in a row, and there's something wrong in the application somewhere. So I'd like to, if that's possible, be able to look at the rubrics.
So I know we can share a generic rubric, which I think you would have. I don't think we'll share the actual graded rubric, but I do know that program coordinators are more than happy to talk with you about individual applications. How can we strengthen them? Where were they lacking? And honestly, they might not have been lacking at all. I was talking with Trade and Industry last week, and they had 36 applications, and we were only able to fund 12 because we have, a pot of money that only goes so far. And I do know that Dr. Kramer's is asking the legislature to double our startup funds, and who knows where that's going to go. But if you want to chat with your legislator and let them know how much those funds mean to our students and our schools and our state, that couldn't hurt. But we had a lot of really good applications, which is awesome that, people are being creative and innovative and wanting to do things, but there just isn't enough dollars to go around. So Rhonda, that might be part of what's going on. And like I said, I only talked to Trade and Industry specifically. We were chatting about something. So I don't know if that helps, but again, talk with the program coordinator for the area and say, hey, I've got questions from this school. Can you talk with us? And, put a meeting together that everybody can be part of, and there could be some guidance and some help for next year. Absolutely.
This is Carlene at Jonesboro. Just something else about that rubric.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you get to the back end of it, all the extra points that certain districts qualify for, sometimes that, a lot of times I'm guessing that puts people over the top, whereas everything else in their application, maybe they got all their points on, or almost all their points on,
Mhm.
but then some of the special circumstances at the end that get additional points, that makes it sometimes difficult for other districts to be able to get funded.
I appreciate that insight. And, as you know, what we're trying to do as a state is to get as many programs offered across the state. And
Yes.
so that's part of the rationale for that as well, is to ensure that funds are all across the state as much as we can. So yeah, it's not fun when we run out of money and we still have a long list. It's not easy on our end either. So I think it's really good to for us to talk about this, and then, like I said, talk to your program coordinators, because that will only help in coming years when we're looking at those applications. And we have the information now to take and say, look at all of the programs we funded, and look at all of the ones that we were not able to fund because we didn't have enough startup monies. So other things with startups. Veronica,
Say
there you
one
come.
thing. May I say
Yes.
one thing?
Please.
And I come from a real strange perspective. I used to be the high school principal, and I have to confess, this is years ago. When I became high school principal, I really did not know a whole lot about CTE. And I will never forget, I had called, oh gosh, she was at Crowley's Ridge forever. Anyway, she did, she was great. She used to work for the State Department.
I'm talking about Kathy Turner.
Yes, Kathy Turner. So anyway, I called her. I said, Kathy, I would really appreciate if you would come meet with me. And I want you to spend the entire day telling me everything I need to know about Perkins and CTE. And she did. It was one of the best days. And I learned so much. I do think, since I have been out of being principal, and we do get various principals, they don't know very much at all. Because they may come from coaching, or they may come from English or math or something. I'm just telling you, at some point, somebody at the State Department needs to have a really good workshop for all those high school administrators who don't know CTE, because they don't understand that when you start a program, you commit to it for so many years.
Right.
And they want to tinker with things, or I'm just telling you, even counselors, they don't understand what the foundations classes are, or that you have to have so many things. And I try to tell them, and sometimes I have some administrators who will come and ask, and I have some that don't. And I just think that that is an area that the state might help us with, is training for the admin people.
Okay.
And then I'll shut up.
Don't ever stop giving me suggestions, because that's how we will improve what we're all trying to do. Is when we know at the state what you guys need in the field. And I've heard the counselor training needs before, but not necessarily the other administrative needs. And I'm sure those conversations have been had at other levels and at other times, but that's something that I will make sure that I'm passing along again, and trying to figure out how could we make that happen. Because I agree, the sitting down and getting trained is critical.
Lydia, something that we do on the co-op level is that we host a principal summit. And
Okay.
that's what we do, is we bring all of our principals in and work with them and talk about Perkins guidelines to challenges that they face as a principal of CTE. And we also do that with our counselors. And we find out that that really does help them, like Ronnie K said, getting that foundational knowledge that they need. and also gives them a time to discuss among each other. You know, this is working really good for us. And then we also try to showcase new programs, new things coming down the line. And that really helps our administrators and our counselors. So we do it with both.
So for those of you keeping score, yet another fabulous reason to be part of a co-op or consortium. So just make it.
Yes, and see, my superintendent pulled us out of the consortium the minute I came over to central office and said, "Oh, by the way, you're the new CTE coordinator." Well, thank goodness I did know, something about it. But and so a lot of times those people that are not in the consortium, and bless her heart, Carolyn McNeely's always contacting me and saying, "Now, Ryan Cat, I want to leave you out." She's really good to do that. I really am thankful for that. But I'm just saying, it's just a different ball game. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I don't think
I'm going to have to
go ahead.
Go ahead, Lydia.
I was going to say, I don't know how I would do it on my own out there in the field if I weren't part of a consortium.
So I'm going to just brag on the consortia leaders up here. And I think we could say this about all of them, but I look at Cheryl Pickering and a lot of the trainings she has, and I'm just going to tell you, Jennifer Turner is my girl as well. She just keeps all of, as we call us up here, the big five that are not, we have our own CTE directors. But I will say the upside of that is this: I have weekly meetings with principals, and I would dare say that in addition to all of the things, it's almost like a supplemental thing for some of those schools that administer their own funding. They have all of the benefits of the knowledge from people like Cheryl Pickering and Jennifer and Lori and all of those people. But then they also have people like me or Ronnie Kay there who are right there. The phone rings all the time. Hey, why this, why that? Let's do this, let's do that. So I'm going to say, I love it. I think it's the best of all worlds because we have just more support and more advocacy for CTE. So that's just my 2 cents to brag on some of my people.
I love to hear that. The other
Yes, we have
side of
great people.
Yeah, the other side of that I hear though are the people that are assigned to be a CTE coordinator on top of their 13 other duties, and it gets really tough. So, I mean, we're all doing the best we can do with what we have for our students. I have no doubt of that whatsoever. So, yeah, I'm not taking away from, I don't mean to take away from anyone that's out there. So I appreciate everybody's efforts. One of the other things we talked about in December was reviewing the Perkins manual. And we do have a meeting scheduled for the co-op CTE coordinators and DCTE staff on February 2nd that we'll start to review that, make edits, and hopefully have something that is really useful and what you guys need in the field. This year has just not worked out for the Perkins manual.
So you're saying that I hate to interrupt. So you're saying that when y'all review that, then you're going to let those of us know that are not in a consortium.
Yeah. So the co-op folks in DCTE will do the review. We'll get a draft, then we'll send the draft out to everybody, and get something working out later this spring. I mean, as quickly as we can, because you guys have been sitting there for a year going, directions, please. So, yeah, that's the plan. Does that sound like it's been previously, or?
Are we still under the policies and procedures? Are you going to add those into the Perkins manual? Are we still following our policies and procedures from our previous years?
Why, that's an excellent question, Jennifer. One that I'll have to get back to you on. Sorry.
That's okay.
thank you for asking it. And those are the kinds of things I need from you guys, is to ask me these questions that I can't answer. So I know that needs to be something in my thinking, and I can get answers back to everyone. So I will look that up, figure it out, and get back to everybody via email.
Something else that might be helpful just for clarification is, now that we're doing reimbursements differently, that it's being automatically pulled and we're not submitting what we used to submit. I'm still keeping like all the paperwork that I would have kept if I had submitted for reimbursement. But some clarification on that in the new manual would be helpful. What do you want us to keep as like I'm in a district, Jonesboro, to keep as the district coordinator in my files in my office compared to what our finance office is already keeping? And of course, we're not doing any traveling or anything, but if we go over the GSA amounts and all that. But if you could just clarify, since we're doing reimbursements differently, what we need to be keeping for audit purposes.
Great, thank you so
Lydia,
much.
along
Yes.
those same
Mhm.
along those same lines, it used to be, and I got a new bookkeeper last year. So it used to be that if there was a mistake in my audit trail and something had been paid incorrectly, I could correct that in the process of seeking reimbursement. Now that that's automatic, many times that's paid and I don't catch it until after the fact. It would be wonderful if there was a process to address those little glitches so that we don't come to the end of a year and there's an audit and we haven't known how to correct that.
Mhm.
I think we could self-correct when we requested reimbursements. That's a little more difficult now.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have another problem with that, and I've been trying to get a hold of Jan Cook. I can't tie back our expenses to what we got reimbursed on. It's not GHON, and so I'm not sure. I got to figure out what. I mean, I've had a real problem. I've spent days on this, and I'm still working on that.
Okay. You threw me with the GHOL. You can't tie back expenses to, I'm sorry, say that again.
I can't tie back our expenses to what we were reimbursed.
Okay, thank you.
Because sometimes it's hard to match the window. Sometimes because the expenditures on the audit trail, we need to know the window that we received the reimbursement for. Because I had that problem one time too, Ronnie K.
Yeah, and Jan told me that the window was like the Monday after the second Saturday or something. And so I'm looking through there and it's still not matching up. So I'm really, when they give you this big amount of money and then you've got 10 things coming out of
Right.
it and you're not, I don't know. And it should match up. I understand what she's saying. If you're going to do it, then on your audit trail, that should match up, and mine doesn't. So I got to figure out what's going on.
Well, and those things are really helpful. Since she's not here this month, I can give her these specifics, because that was one of the things we were going to meet about. Was I had the feedback you guys had given me in the survey, and those were the things we were going to look at. But these specifics will really help her in our training coming forward. I'll try to get you answers before that meeting, but these are the kinds of things that we need to know you're looking for clarification and help on.
Hey, Ronnie K, this is Lori Mitchell. Basically what they do is DESE is pulling the second Saturday of each month. And so you need to run your Perkins expenditure transaction analysis report from that Saturday to the next month's second Saturday. And that's the time that they pull. And I haven't had any problem with mine matching up. Again, like I have spoke to North Little Rock, and they had an issue where some of the things that were going through the 6570 account number were automatic things that were being done in like the finance, and they weren't actually being signed off. So you might want to see if there's anything where your bookkeeper is automatically paying for things maybe that you don't know about. And that might be why it's not matching up also.
Hey,
I'm
so-
meeting with our CFO today to try to work on that. Yeah, you're right. But generally, they won't pay off anything until I sign off on it. Our bookkeeper, our two people in that office. But then we have a CFO.
Gave to North Little Rock too, is that they really shouldn't be putting anything through Perkins that he didn't sign off on, but there was some automatic things. And so that might be, but I'm wondering if your issue is that Saturday, the second Saturday of each month to the second Saturday. You know, if you're not really perfect on when to pull that report, you might miss a day of transactions or when things went through. So, you know, you really want to set that time frame. Like every month I request that from that day, that second Saturday to the next month's second Saturday. And they seem to be accurate.
She did say to me that they're going to try to do it that way. But then she said, I swear, I think I heard her say something like, you know, we can't always do it that way. And I'm thinking, uh-oh, I don't know. I'll figure it out. I know I haven't done anything illegal or unethical. I know that. But I mean, I got to figure out, you know, how come that's not matching up. Jihad. So thank you.
This is Donna at Conway. I know at one time my finance person was running that same Cognos report on the second Saturday of the month so that I could compare what was being taken out. But now I've changed finance persons and that person doesn't know how to run a Cognos report. So does Jan Cook, Lori Mitchell, do you know how to run a Cognos report that I can run from my office? Or does that have to come from finance?
No, I think it'd have to come from finance. I don't have any kind of access to that. You know, the one that I run, the title of that report is called it's like I give her my my account number, and it's a expenditure transaction report. And so that's what you need to specifically ask for. And it'll show everything that basically within that month has come out of that account. And it should match up with what the reimbursement is that you're receiving.
Yeah, that's coming from AbScan. The Cognos report was really good though, because it had exactly what the account number was, what account it was coming out of, budget code wise, and then the account, the codes matched up, and so I could tell exactly what they were looking at. Whereas an AbScan report, and I'm guessing yours is the same as mine, Lori, that you still have to go down through each one of those, each area, and figure out what's been spent. But I'm keeping a spreadsheet, just so I know exactly, even though I don't even know if y'all are y'all gonna send out a spreadsheet this year like you did last year? Or are we supposed to be doing the same as we did last year? I don't know. Lori, are you keeping a spreadsheet for last year's?
Yes,
Yeah, we are too.
And let me say this, and this is going to blow everybody's mind, but we even went further. When we went into AbScan, we now basically are putting that in with every project. Meaning now I'm able to get an AbScan report, and it'll have I've got 10 projects, and based on the last 4 digits, you can actually set up your projects in AbScan, and it'll run. For instance, I've got one that's just industry certifications. So that page of that, the transaction analysis report, it'll have just those for that particular project. And so if you'll meet with your bookkeeper, and I'll say this, I don't think you can do it now. You'd have to start the new year with this, the July 1, but you can assign a number, an account number in AbScan using the last, it's really the last 2 digits, and you can get it down to activity, like your projects.
And Donna, John that works with me could talk you through how you can see your account through, be able to pull your own report if you have the rights to do so. And so I can, if you'll hang on at the end, I'll give you our number and you can call him and he can talk you through that.
Oh, that would be great.
You guys are awesome. I love the I love the sharing of the knowledge, and it's really nice to be working with folks that are so collaborative. That's what it's like at the state level as well. Everybody in our office and within other offices, if we reach out and say help, there's lots of lifelines being thrown out. So, and Lori, I'm thinking we're going to need to get you scheduled to do some, and I'm serious, to talk about some of how you're managing all of this, but because it sounds like you've got a really good streamlined system set up. And if other folks were interested to maybe get that set up before the start of the next fiscal year. So we'll chat. Okay, so then the training topics calendar through May. You'll see what we've got scheduled: finance, data and assessment, and then concurrent scholarships. If there are other things that you want training on between times, we certainly can do other Zoom meetings that are recorded. I can do a YouTube slide deck, whatever, if there are other topics that we need to cover. Anything hot on your minds in terms of training at this point? Okay. All righty. So we're at the updates from the field piece, my favorite part of the meeting. What's happening in your world that can help other folks? We've done some of that already with the finance stuff, but in terms of what are your students doing? What are your teachers doing?
Yeah, before we get to that, there was some questions on the chat that
I am so sorry. You see my screen. I don't have my chat up. I'm gonna have to stop share. Wow. Okay. Thank you so much, Emily. Placement deadline extended. At this point, and this is way back, I'm so sorry. Shannon, at this point for placement, we don't have a deadline. I know February 15th was thrown around, but once we get the information to you, we'll talk about when we need it back. And I don't know what what we'll be using that data for at this point. So I'll get back to you about that. Okay, unfunded, I think we talked about. I will ask again today because I don't have that information. Information posted on how to accept the startup grant and what the reimbursement process will change to. So we haven't posted anything yet. We talked about it a little bit on the meeting that we have. We are moving now to the grants management system that it sounds like you guys use for other grants that you have funded. Again, this is another new technology that I'll get to learn. I have done grants management other places, so hopefully it won't be too hard of a process for me to then be able to explain to you guys what we need. And what we said was the grants won't actually be hot, I guess. I don't know another word to use until we've got them in the grants management system. So you can actually see the funds and be able to use them at that point.
I have a question on that.
Please,
Perkins
yeah.
funding goes through the co-op, but the startup grant goes through the individual school district, whether they're in the consortium or not. And so what does that look like? Will there be any oversight required by the CTE coordinator? Because normally, we kind of submit the grant, we help with any questions, but as far as purchasing, those schools are purchasing without our approval. And so I just wondered what that looked like for the CTE coordinator side of it.
Thanks, Emily. I don't think that's going to change. They are state funds, you're right. And we're wanting to try to do everything through this grant management system moving forward, I think is what I've heard. And so this will be kind of that first step into that. So I don't foresee the process of oversight changing in terms of state startup. I will double check on that.
Lydia, at one time we were told that we were responsible for the inventory for state startup, yet we do not get that inventory in our office. It's just between the school and the state. So we need to find, if we are responsible, and we need to start getting an actual printout of what they purchased.
Mhm. I'm making notes, guys, sorry. Okay, sorry.
One more thing before we get off that
Oh, no, you're
subject. My
fine.
concern was just as we give guidance to our districts, and they would be, I'm assuming it'll be the same reimbursement process as far as they'll expend the funds up front and then be reimbursed. So I want to make sure that they have the minimum equipment list and that they're aware of what documents they need to keep as they make purchases from that minimum equipment list, so that when it comes time for reimbursement, because it was mentioned it would be different, they would at least be aware that they have to have all of the documentation from the purchases that they make. So that's kind of what I was interested in, was that reimbursement. If it was going to change, I wanted to make sure on the front end what the expectation would be for the documentation.
Okay. All right. I have added to my list that's another thing for me to follow up on. So thanks. I really do appreciate that. Let's see. There's a suggestion from Lori Perkins at the A to E Summit for Secondary Administrators. And I'm trying to think, Lori, if that's already in the works, but I will double check on that. Because that would hit those, the other principals and folks that aren't perhaps getting the CTE information. I'm reading. Okay, so Jennifer is asking about program approvals for the year, and will there be any changes to programs of study for next year? So program approvals, I have those lists. Jennifer was consolidating them and then breaking them out by district and LEA. And now, of course, she's moved over to business and marketing. So that is high on my list to get done this week. So program approval should come out, I'm going to say early next week, so I can hopefully get it done this in the remainder of this week. And as far as changes to programs of study, Jennifer, are you talking about like the changes that happened from Perkins 4 to Perkins 5?
Any like, are you going to add additional courses on level 3? Are there going to be other level 2 courses added? I've got some counselors, and especially our big schools, they've already had to send to the publisher what next year looks like. And so it puts us at a disadvantage, and then we get a program of a conditional approval because they didn't offer the courses that DCT when they finally made the changes. And that's what happened on a few of our schools from last year. So they're asking, are we having any changes? If they are, they're going to kind of try to hold off as long as they can. But if we're not, can we move forward and go ahead and publish what the courses that are listed, and that's going to be the correct courses?
Right. I will ask that today. I haven't heard of any changes. That doesn't mean there aren't discussions that I'm not in. We did have a meeting yesterday with Virtual Arkansas about their courses and what they're offering and what they're proposing. And there were 1 or 2 changes that they were going to follow up with our staff on, with the knowledge that you guys, the schools are all waiting for that, concrete information because students are getting ready to register, which you have to know what courses you're offering to get registration done. So Jennifer, I'll get that asked today and hopefully I'll have an answer for you this afternoon that I can email out.
While you're checking on that,
Yeah.
also add to that note, how will programs be approved? How many virtual Arkansas programs can a program of study offer and still get program approval? Level.
Okay.
I don't want schools to start offering a program of study through virtual Arkansas. That would not be good.
Lots of discussions.
Excuse me, Lydia.
Yes.
I attended a meeting with DESE concerning Educators Rising this week, and I know that the course numbers for that program of study, those course numbers are changing.
Educator which?
Educators Rising.
He's just opening this up to everybody.
Here's
what's bad.
Ronnie K, your mic's on.
Yes. I'm sorry. I was.
I mean, you can leave it on and we'll all listen.
So sorry. The secretary just walked in and asked me something. I'm so sorry. I'm also in charge of spelling bee.
Man, I thought she was yelling at me.
Remind me to never make you mad, Ronnie.
I'm just glad it wasn't me that she was yelling at. That's all I'm saying. Okay, I'm sorry. I've got to go back to the how many virtual Arkansas programs can a school offer, and still, can you say that again?
How many courses?
How many courses? Thank you.
Within a program of study could be offered or taken through virtual Arkansas and the program still get a program approval.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Excellent question, Stacy. I'm wondering the same thing.
I hope the answer is very minimal.
I'm on my second full page here, people. Oh, taking my
Last year, Stacy, I was told that how can they possibly teach those classes without the equipment list? And that makes more sense than anything.
Part of the discussion yesterday was talking about the foundational courses that they offer. And again, I have a very basic understanding of CTE that the foundational courses wouldn't typically need the equipment. And they're also, sounds like they're working to do more kind of hybrid courses. So there's some virtual, and then there are the resources on campuses that students would attend and get the hands-on and those kinds of things. Again, that was my first meeting with Virtual Arkansas. So I was pretty much listening and trying to absorb.
I think,
go ahead.
I think one thing to consider, and this is just me in the curriculum background, is that it would be nice if we have the same opportunities as our virtual friends. And that if the rules are the same for both parties to level that playing field, I think we could all be happy with that. But it's hard to play under our rules and then another entity offer something and they have a whole different set of rules that we're not afforded to. Mm-hmm. So if we could get any help with that, I think that would help us a great deal.
Good observation. Yeah. Okay, and then where were we? There was another discussion. Sorry, I've lost who that was now. We were talking about Virtual Arkansas, and then there was somebody else.
There was something about course code. I think it was Ms. Montgomery.
Yes.
That was me. I met with Cheryl Crawley, who works for DESE, in discussion about the Educators Rising program of study that used to be Teacher Cadet. The name is changing to Educators Rising, and there are new course codes for level 2 and level 3 courses. She shared those with us, but I don't have them handy to share with all of you. So if you could send those out so that people can update their course numbers for schools, that would be great.
Okay, thank you. I was just
I
overhearing.
met with them as well about the Educators Rising, and there was a little bit of confusion during our session because it is essentially our education and training program of study, and there was some confusion about who could teach it. When you go to the course code management system for the level 1 course, it says that you have to have that FACS licensure. But when you go to the standards for the level 1 course, it says that any certified teacher can teach it, which I believe to be true. There's just a disconnect between what the course code management system says and what the standards say.
Yeah, but Allison, didn't they also say that the level 1 course does not fall under the frameworks for what the state wants? I mean, the level 1 course isn't even applicable to what the state wants under Ed Rising, even though that's what's required for our program of study. I mean, are they going to completely do away with the level 1 course for that program of study in order to bring in alignment with ADE? I mean, that's the thing. They don't know what they're doing there, because I asked them the same questions when I was on with them, because I've got 4 schools wanting to do Ed Rising. And, you know, like I said, they're not even sure the level 1 program of study course is going to be necessary. But then how can they be completers if they don't complete the level 1 course?
I think there's a lot of disconnects because, you know, they were like, well, you don't have to offer the whole program of study. And I about fell out of my chair when they said that. And apparently in the earlier session that Jay and I did not attend, there was conversation about using Perkins to pay the teacher's salary. And so I refer back to our Perkins manual. And in one place, it does say that the salary can be paid. But then when you go, I think, to page 26 and you see the breakdown, it says the teacher's salary cannot be paid. So again, there's another disconnect. And Lydia, I can email you all of this, but
That would be fabulous. I was having a conversation last week with some of the folks from FACS, and that's the first I had heard about Educators Rising in our pre-educator program and programs of study, and how there's some conflicts, there's some overlap, there's some confusion. So yeah, Allison, if you could send me whatever it is that you have, I will chat with Amanda Porter in FACS, and I will also make sure this gets floated up to Sonia and Dr. Kramer's, so there's an understanding at that level. Because you know, hearing from you all now, it sounds like there are multiple conversations happening and confusion about funding and programs of study versus, well, you can just take these couple of courses. So yeah, we need to get some clarification on all that. And,
the other disconnect that I had seen or noticed on that call was it was almost assumed that Perkins and state startup grants would automatically be awarded. And, you know, I tried to clarify that, nope, that's not the case. You know, we had an educator program at one of my schools that this would be year 2 for them that applied for a grant, and that it did not get approved this year. And so I definitely think there needs to be some strong conversation and alliance between ADE and DCTE on what information's being put out there, because it does make one or both institutions lose credibility when we're telling different things to schools. So it's been a huge concern.
So who was hosting? You guys have kind of talked about these meetings. Who was hosting those? Was it DESE or?
Yeah, they were under DESE.
It was, I believe Charlie Crossan is how you pronounce her name, was the one hosting.
Okay.
Well, and I
Thank
think
you.
I can speak for the entire group. One of the most frustrating things that anyone can say in a meeting is, oh, well, Perkins will pay for it. Well, you know, even though Perkins may be an approvable expenditure,
Right.
we may not have the funding in our budgets. We may have other projects and activities planned. So every time I hear, well, Perkins will pay for it, that's cringeworthy.
It's we don't have a money factory back here just, grinding it out. So yeah.
Oh no, this is what they're telling them. 2 of my schools that are doing this don't even have FACS programs of study. Nothing. And they're being told by DESE that we'll be able to use Perkins on them. And I'm trying to explain to my principals, I cannot put Perkins into a program of study that doesn't exist.
Right.
You don't have anything FACS that can even bring in the educator training. It's just, they're telling them stuff that just is completely contradictory to what we've been taught and what the rules state.
Absolutely.
It's just frustrating.
Yeah. Well, like several of you have said, there's confusion and there's conflicts, and honestly, as someone working in a state agency, it's very frustrating that we aren't all on the same page, and different information is being sent out. That's just not who we want to be as a state, honestly. So all right, so Educators Rising has risen to the top for me. I will absolutely look into that. Allison, if you can send me whatever information, if others of you have things that you think would be pertinent for me to look at or know about, I'd really appreciate hearing that so I can follow up. We'll move forward. There was a question about when would you have access to the grant management system, and are we planning a professional development session? I don't know the answer as to when you'll have access, and absolutely before we roll that out, we will do some training, and because I think that's how we all learn. And today's meeting is a great example that when you don't even ask the questions or let the discussion happen, we can't uncover what needs there are. So absolutely, when that rolls, we will give you some professional development. Acknowledgement from Carolyn that Ronnie K wears a lot of hats. Thank you, Ronnie K. And we did appreciate that little diversion of whatever that was a few minutes ago. That was quite fun, and we all decided we don't want to make you angry.
I'm really a nice person, but sometimes I just, it's just enough's enough.
Trust me, I think we all get it. We all get it. Okay, Teresa emailed a few weeks ago about a student taking a level 3 course for one program of study, taking the level 2 course. Can they still be a double completer? Ooh, I am actually, Teresa, I'm going to cut and paste this because that's a really good question. I'm emailing myself.
If they meet all levels and a course is offered in 2 different programs of study, yes, you could have a child that would be a double completer. And when they pull the data, that's how it's going to be pulled.
Well, my question was because I was told or read or something that has to be taken in order starting, I don't remember if it's 21, 22 or 22, 23. So if they did survey and then accounting and then later came back into business procedures, that's not in order, because in the program of study with business procedures, accounting is level 3. Well, in the finance program of study, accounting is level 2. So that's my question, because I have 10th graders in accounting 1 right now. And then as an 11th grader, they could take business procedures. Well, then that's out of order.
I do not believe they have the metrics for selecting the order. And I believe that also when you look at that, you have to give the kids the benefit of the doubt. And I'll go to bat for any of our kids that way, because sometimes in a perfect world, it sounds really great, level 1, 2, 3. But in reality, when we're talking about small schools and tight schedules, it doesn't always work that way.
And see, that was exactly my point when I posted the question the first time, because we do offer everything one time, one period. And so sometimes it's hard to work when you're doing other things, AP Chem and AP Physical Science, and they're only offered once as well. So sometimes it's hard to make that 1, 2, 3 happen.
You know, in policies and procedures, it also, I think, states that, of course, must be offered at least every other year so that students can complete a program of study. So if it's only offered every other year at some of these smaller schools, and, you know, this is not necessarily a me issue as much as it may be for some of our smaller neighbors, students may only ever have 1 or 2 chances. So I'm with Jennifer on that. The metrics probably don't exist. And if they did, if we look at what is the right thing to do by students and we err in favor of our students, this is slippery slope.
Well, and I was also, we're adding a nutrition and something in facts. And I was told that once we say we're having the program of study, everything needs to be offered every year. Well, I can offer it, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna have students in it. So, because again, small school, we're not gonna have a whole lot of kids in it, but it would be a great thing for our kids to have. So those are just some of the things I've just thought I'd need answers to before I promote this to the kids. And then we do our schedule, and then I have to go back and say, oh, sorry.
Well, and to be completely honest, you know, the completer issue, if completers are only going to be recognized locally, does it really matter what order they take it in? Because that's not our performance indicator. The performance indicator would be the concentrator. So to me, if I'm working on completer reports and completer awards, I don't really care what order they take them in. Is that wrong? I mean, that's how I view it.
You know, so that all, I mean, when you look at Perkins and how the programs of study are laid out in Perkins 5, they are, you know, the purpose is that you have the foundational courses, and then the courses increase in specificity, right, for the area. And so you want to take them in order. And I understand what you're saying in terms of completers, that it may or may not matter to get that certification. However, within Perkins 5, that's the requirement that they are in order. And I believe somebody said the 21, 22, that's my understanding. I think that's when it starts. I don't think it's 2021. I could be wrong. I will look that up as well. And I do hear what you guys are saying, especially for our smaller schools. And Teresa, if your enrollment numbers are down, and we've had a couple of conversations about that at the state level, and you know, just trying to figure out how we can help make sure those things are happening. So I'll make sure this gets discussed again at the state level, so we can start brainstorming perhaps some ways to take care of this, so things are offered.
Lydia, for Little Rock School District, we decided not to start levels until this year's freshman class. We couldn't go back and reschedule all of our upperclassmen, so we're going to graduate our current 10th and 10th through 12th graders out and start our level 1 classes on the 9th or 10th grade level. And that's what we decided to do as a district because there was no way we could go back and make those kids restructure how we schedule them.
So would you not allow someone in the 10th grade to take a level 1 course and be able to complete by senior year?
Well, some of the 10th graders were able to take level 1 courses this year, but not all of them. Some of them had already taken level 1 classes. And so we just decided it would be better for us to do a fresh start and start with this year's 9th grade class.
And Lydia, I think one of the questions or maybe definitions that we need is offer. When a school offers a course, and let's say I have some school districts that if less than 10 students are enrolled, that course is not going to make, but they still offered the course. Are they going to continue to, when they show you proof that they offered the course, but it didn't make? And so we're going to need guidance in that, because I've had different offices tell me that's not okay. And I've had others say, great, thank you for showing us. So we'll need to understand that.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Okay, so it's a really good thing that Jan wasn't here today, because I think these are really important issues that we need to get clarified answers to, those kinds of things. And I think I got through all the questions. Emily, thank you so much for going. Hey, there's a whole lot of stuff up for in the discussion. If a school has students complete a full program of study in virtual Arkansas, can they count that student as a concentrator or completer? I'm going to check on it. I have a gut, but I'm gonna not go with my gut, because it's government and your gut isn't always your best guide. So I'll figure that out as well, Shannon.
If those course codes are the same, they're going to get pulled the same.
That's my gut, Jennifer. But like I said, I want to make sure that I'm on the right track. That's what I'm, if they are in that school and in those courses, then yeah. The only difference in those course codes is that there's a V on those, correct? On the virtual Arkansas courses.
If the school puts it in that way.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And the system doesn't pick up the last digit anyway. It always changes it back to a 0.
And kind of going off of that question too, I have a couple of schools that don't have the approved programs of study, but kids are completing the programs of study in virtual Arkansas, back to kind of what Stacy was saying earlier. And they're questioning, can they count those students? So that was another question that kind of went along with that one.
Okay,
Shannon, I had this discussion yesterday with Virtual Arkansas, specifically about computer science. And in the past, when I've counted completers, I really only had one school who had submitted a program startup grant for computer science. So when I look at those, I think, well, that's the only one who has an approved CTE computer science program. But the Virtual Arkansas guy basically said, well, they've now completed all 3 of the courses that they have to, they should be completers. So this goes back to what Allison said, is now completers does not matter to us on a Perkins level. It only matters at the school level. So if that school wants to recognize that student who's taken 3 levels of courses in computer science, they can, because it's not anything we're reporting. Now, what Jennifer just said is they're going to pull as a concentrator, because they've had the 2 level 1 and level 2 courses, and that's an automatic pull. And so they're going to show as a concentrator, and if that school wants to recognize them as a completer, they have that right, because now that's the only level that completers are being recognized.
The completer status, and I'm just brainstorming here, okay? The completer status is still a CTE recognition, correct? Whether it's attached to Perkins funding or not, it's still a CTE designation.
Yes, but we don't have a way necessarily to go back and say this is an approved program. When a student moves from a school to another school and they've completed a program, and so we don't have the metrics to say, well, this is the only approved program. If that school doesn't even have Agri, and you have all of a sudden there's a kid that's a completer because where they've moved and where they've moved and where they've moved. And so there's no metrics to show us approved programs necessarily. and Virtual Arkansas.
Thanks, Jennifer. I really appreciate that. All right. So are there celebration things, excitement that you want to share with each other, what your students are doing? All right. That's all I have. Are there other things that you need to talk about this month?
Lydia, I will share a link to, I've got a Google Drive folder that we've been doing virtual industry tours with FedEx, Tyson, a lot of big names in my area. So I'll share a link to that. There's some of the 15 CTE coordinators that are utilizing that, but I haven't sent that out to all CTE coordinators. So that is something that's exciting going on here. That others may benefit from. We're actually using some of those videos for our regional advisory meeting. So others are welcome to use them and do with them what they will. So I'll share a link to that in the comments.
Awesome. Awesome. And as you guys know, I will cut and paste these comments into a document that gets shared on the shared drive as well. So, wow, that's awesome. All right. If there's nothing else. Thanks, Emily.
And Lydia, you're going to stay on with me for just a minute, right?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. You guys stay safe and warm and healthy and all those fun things. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.